All right, guys, welcome to the latest episode of Blood Money. Today we have one of my favorite guests, Brandon Joe Williams. How you doing, sir?
Good, man. How you doing?
Man, it's really great to have you on the podcast. You know, we've had you on here. I think this is the third or fourth time. And you've been nonstop, brother. I mean, let's kind of, before we get into everything, the main topic of this episode, which is that we're going to be focusing on some of your most recent findings, what you told me a few days ago, absolutely mind-blowing information. Let's give everybody your URLs because for the viewers out there, there's already so much information on Brandon's websites in terms of videos, documents, and he does it all pretty much because he loves to give this to the people. So, Brandon, what are the key websites where people could find your work and the basis of this conversation?
Yeah, sure. I could even do a screen share and show you guys.
Awesome.
Because it's just a lot, so it's probably better to just show it.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got onestupidfuck.com, which is the one a lot of people think is pretty funny, right? This one here, we've got all sorts of different things, but we have a step-by-step guide. It says here, step-by-step guide, start here. This is a great place to just full text breakdown of like all the different things and the free course. And the first things I recommend are to sign up for the free course and then also read what's called the Treatise on the Word Person, which is what you just finished reading. Which is on williamsandwilliamslawfirm.com. And you're going to see this website. You're just going to click on the link here, Treatise on the Word Person, scroll down, and then you'll be reading this. It's the size of maybe a small book. It's fairly easy to read. It's going to require a little bit of work, but it's not too hard. And then also the Driving v Traveling on williamsandwilliamslawfirm.com. You can see it here. You scroll down. So the free course plus these two very long, detailed breakdowns will give you, I'll just toot my own horn here. You know, after 10,000 hours probably at putting into this, if you read the treatise and read Driving versus Traveling and go through the course, you know, you're going to be probably as far along with this information as somebody would have been had they been studying it for like 35 plus years previously. So we're crunching it down, you know, maybe 30, 35 years worth of this information you can get now in a few weeks. So it's a pretty big, and then we're obviously still, I'm still working very, very hard to get that even down even farther. How do we get faster with it? How can we get 50 years of research done in a week? You know, that's kind of like where this is headed. Obviously, as we go farther and farther and farther down that rabbit hole, it gets harder and harder and harder to crunch that. You know, we're going to hit a rock bottom at some point. I'd probably say the rock bottom is going to be like, you know, 40 or 50 years worth of research in like 2 weeks.
Wow. And by the way, when I made the screen bigger, King Pickle Fuck is excellent. I'm so glad I didn't see that before. I was interrupting your flow.
It's the best. It's the best, bro.
Man, you know, I got to tell people, you know, before we get into all the technical good stuff about, you know, being a white person in this country and all this amazing new information, I got to tell people, man, we're having some lunch or dinner the other day, and some of the stuff we were talking about was so wild, man. We left that meeting going like, you know, it kind of feels like we're the motherfucking Avengers, you know what I'm saying? Like this whole crew of like, so, you know, tell us about the, you know, Slow Jamistan a little bit. Let's talk about that topic for a sec, you know?
Slow Jamistan is the best. So I'll show it to you guys. It's better to show it to you. This is another one that's just better to show. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
So it's www.slowjamistan.org, not IST. It's a micronation that's way out in the I'm already laughing. He's look at this croc.
This is, by the way, guys, the reason why this is so
threat level moderate. It's so good.
That is so great. This is actually real stuff, by the way. That's what I find so fascinating, that yes, you can actually set up your own nation. This is part of what Brandon teaches. I mean, we're going to get into some of the more I guess, serious and technical stuff in a second, but this is an actual real thing. These guys set up their own micronation. This dude walks around literally looking like a hybrid of like Muammar Gaddafi meets like Fidel Castro. He's got people that, tell me, like, there's people that follow him around and kind of treat him like he's like supposed to be the king of this nation, or?
Yeah, he's got a patrol agent, chief porter patrol agent, and the reason why is because they found out legally that if they just switch the P and the B, it's no longer illegal for them to have trucks that say porter patrol on them. So that's how they did it, right?
Wow.
Director of Emergency Services. This is Randy Williams, the Sultan of Slaughterhouse. This is Director of Land Management, Joe Lindsay.
I mean, these guys look all official, though. This guy, Matt Conti here, and Joe Lindsay, they look too normal.
Slaughterhouse Security Forces. Well, if you want to see me, I'll go ahead and, go to About, and then you're going to go to Parliament, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to go down. And here we go. Here's all the Parliament members. We've got your Press Secretary General. We've got your Special Forces. We've got your Secretary, Treasury, Crown Prince, Director of S3. We've got your Director of Misdirection. We've got your Empress. We have the Princess Duchess of Croc Rehab. A very strong rule. You're not allowed to wear Crocs within the territorial boundaries of Slaughterhouse. We have the Minister of Tomfoolery.
That's one of their two constitutional things, right? You can't wear Crocs. And what was the second one?
You have to peel string cheese. You can't bite right into it.
Okay.
That's a big one. That'll get you put in the stocks, right? We've got Minister of Crafts and Napping, Director of Counterintelligence. We have the Minister of Margaritas, Larry Pancake. Air Force, Minister of Trans Affairs. So you can see where it's not really like a left or a right thing. It's kind of whatever. It's come as you are. Damn, this girl's cute. Who's this? Director of Bean and Cheese Burrito Affairs. I'm already hit her up for some bean cheese burritos. You know what I'm saying? And then we go down, and then here's me in the pickle outfit.
Prince of Pickles.
So you click on that. It says here, the nation of the Amnesty Coalition, after learning from his fans that cucumbers brine in the behind and transform into pickles, he became the king pickle of Pickletaria. But his relationship with the fellow nation of Slaughterhouse will be more modest, the Prince of Pickles.
Oh, man. That is awesome.
And my passport that I have that was issued to me from Slaughterhouse has this picture on it, too. So it's pretty funny. You open my passport up. I can show it to you here. I have my diplomatic passport right here. Actually, this one's even funnier than that one. This one's, I'm smiling. Let me turn off the screen share and I'll show it to you.
Wow. So that's a real passport, huh? How do you get one of those made? Oh, wow. That is your visit to Slaughterhouse. You have to get it stamped.
Yep.
Oh, wow. That is really cool, man. So that's a real nation, so a real passport. And before we go off to our big topic, wow. Those are two different copies, or?
Yeah, I have two. And then here's some Slaughterhouse doubles, which is paper money.
Wow. So, I mean, could you use this stuff if you're going across a border? If you show your Slaughterhouse passport?
So people have done it.
Really? Yeah.
I have my own, and then I have my own passport card for the nation of the Amnesty Coalition.
Mm-hmm.
I think I showed you guys at the.
Yeah. Wow. Here, I'm going to make the screen bigger. I'm going to take.
The problem is that, I don't know if you putting this on YouTube, because they, for whatever reason, if you put anything that looks like a passport up to the screen too much, they take the video down and they block it for personal information or whatever. But I don't know if you're going to be using YouTube, but I don't know what it is. The only problem I've ever had on any social media with my platform is showing my passports, which is super weird. But anyways, yeah, it's super fun. I mean, we're having a blast. It's Slaughterhouse is more of a big joke. It's all big fun and games, funniness. And then my nation is definitely has a lot of humor infused into it, but it's quite a bit more on the serious end. But pickles and pickletaria, and it's still got a lot of the goofiness, but it's just a lot more serious, and we're actually trying to do something with it rather than it just be like all fun and games. So Jamistan is just pure like fun and games. It's real, but it doesn't take itself as anything real. It's just you can't tell if it's real, if it's not, if they think it's real, like you can't tell anything. So, and he actually goes to places like NATO and stuff, and like it's hilarious. Like he treats it like it's a real thing, and it is a real thing, but no one can really tell like what's going on with it. It's just a big hilarious.
Yeah, but lawfully, you're able to establish a nation. You're able to have your own currency. I mean, this is all lawful. It's not.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, wow. What I'm doing and what he's doing is 100% legal. Yeah,
amazing. And yeah, one of these days we'll get into that topic. But the topic that I'm really excited about is, we've been talking a lot about this whole, state national, the sovereign citizen theories, all this stuff, and there's been a lot of dialogue and all that. All I've heard throughout the years is that, people really haven't nailed it. But what you told me, what you shared with me recently, and what I just read this morning really is probably the most convincing argument I've ever seen. I mean, these are laws embedded in case law. I mean, do you want to just take it over and tell us what you've discovered recently, Brandon?
Yeah, sure. So it just comes down to that treatise of the word person, and I'll do a screen share again. If we go to the treatise here on williamsandwilliamslawfirm.com, we can go down and you can just see, I kind of take you for the whole kind of linear timeline as to what it all means. And it's all based off of the word person, right? If you look at the Constitution preamble, you will see that, and people are aware of this isn't anything special, we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, right? And then we're going to look up the slave importation clause, Constitution, right? And you'll see in the Constitution, there is a slave trade clause or migration or importation clause at Article 1, Section 9, Clause 1. And it reads as follows: the migration or importation of such persons. So the very, very first time we see this delineation between the word people and the word persons is actually literally the Constitution. There's been a lot of talk about the difference between people and persons, but I'm probably the first person to go along and actually find all of the places in case law and break it all down and show each individual place where they're talking about the difference between the word people and the word persons, right? So taking that into account, what happened was we go to the Dred Scott versus Sanford case, which is in let's see here. Well, we can start here. So go all the way back to the Naturalization Act of 1790, and originally, and still to this day, actually, in order to naturalize as a citizen of a state, because there wasn't such thing as a U.S. citizen until the Slaughterhouse cases. So in 1790, all the way up until 1873, there was no such thing as a U.S. citizen. There was only a state citizen. And the only way you could become a state citizen, the only way you could naturalize into the United States of America, was you had to be what's called a free white person. And the definition of what that means is right here. I found all the court cases and stuff that basically delineated what exactly means a free white person and what doesn't, basically. It's quite specific. But on a more loose definition, we have this one, meaning all persons belonging to the European races then commonly counted as white and their descendants, including such descendants in other countries to which they have emigrated. But then this one, they go into much deeper detail as to which ones are and which ones are not considered a free white person. Obviously, that whole free white person thing, the first time it really became a serious issue was the Dred Scott versus Sanford case, which comes from 1857, which is a very, very prominent case that's happened. And we have these quotes here where the Chief Justice, the 5th Chief Justice of the United States, his name is Roger B. Taney. He's often considered to be one of the worst Supreme Court justices ever because of what he says in Dred Scott versus Sanford. But that's all bullshit. He's actually an incredible justice. He's the symbol of what American culture should be looking up to as a prime example. And the idea...
Could I make a comment here? It's basically because people are judging him by today's standards, whereas with all the realities that happened because of this man, as opposed to looking at it through the goggles of his time, really.
Well, it's even beyond that, because all he was doing was trying to follow the Constitution. Okay. So if you want to point at something and say racist, don't point at him, point at the Constitution. The slave importation clause is very, very, very clear that the African black slaves were not considered part of we the people at all. And Roger Taney is not saying anything new. He's just saying he's just saying what's obvious. He's saying what was already there. He's not saying anything new, and he's not responsible for shifting the culture in a certain direction. He looked at the information and he made a determination based off of the obvious evidence and facts of the situation, period. And he wasn't even a slave owner. Of the 9 chief justices at this time, 5 of them were slave owners. Taney was actually in the minority. He was not a slave owner. He had actually already released his inherited slaves by this point. And I think he even said in a case that he doesn't have slaves. He doesn't want to have slaves. So his personal opinion is actually the totally opposite of what you see in this case. And the reason why is because he's not going based off of what's in his mind or his opinions. He's going strictly based off of the law, the precedent, the past, and the Constitution only and exclusively. In fact, Taney was very good at staying within the confines of what he should be doing and not going outside of the confines of what he was supposed to be doing in terms of what he was allowed to do with his office and the Constitution. So with that said, these are the quotes from that case, and you can see how clear this is. The words people of the United States and citizens are synonymous terms and mean the same thing. They both describe the political body who, according to a Republican institutions, form the sovereignty and who hold the power and conduct the government through their representatives. They are what we familiarly call the sovereign people, and every citizen is one of this people and a constituent member of this sovereignty. And this quote is actually the quote that I use now whenever anyone calls me a sovereign citizen, which all the bar cards, because they're such fucking lazy, dumb, ignorant pieces of shit, they like to just call me sovereign citizen all the time for everything. I say anything, and I show all the original definitions, and a sovereign citizen, that's their answer for everything. I'll go on and I'll write a whole book, and the whole thing is just case law and definitions all tied down, and their answer is, oh, he's a sovereign citizen. That's how fucking retarded they are, right? So whenever they use that now, I just, like last week, I released a sovereign citizen rebuttal. The rebuttal to being called a sovereign citizen is just, yeah, sure, according to how Roger B. Taney defines it. That's fine with me. Mm-hmm. So whenever I get called a sovereign citizen, I just list this quote, and I say, yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Sure. Roger B. Taney says that I'm a sovereign citizen, so yeah, I'll be a sovereign citizen. But this is going to be the definition for that term in this court case. You're not going to use some FBI website horse shit that isn't even case law. If you're going to call me a sovereign citizen, we're going to use this as the definition. So go ahead and keep calling me that, you stupid fuck. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Continuing on this case, he says here, the question before us is whether this class of persons described in the plea and abatement compose a portion of this people and are constituent members of this sovereignty. We think they are not, and they are not included, and were not intended to be included under the word citizens in the Constitution, and can therefore claim none of the rights and privileges which that instrument provides for and secures to citizens of the United States.
This is the Dred Scott, right?
Yep.
Okay.
On the contrary, they were at that time considered a subordinate and inferior class of beings who had been subjugated by the dominant race, and whether emancipated or not, yet remained subject to their authority and had no rights or privileges but such as those who held the power and the government might choose to grant them. Now, he's not saying this because it's Tierney's opinion. He's just saying, like, this is history, brother. Whether you like it or not, doesn't matter. Okay? So just keep that in mind. In the opinion of the court, the legislation and histories of the times and the language used in the Declaration of Independence show that neither the class of persons who had been imported as slaves nor their descendants, whether they had become free or not, were then acknowledged as a part of the people, nor intended to be included in the general words used in that memorable instrument. It is difficult at this day to realize the state of public opinion in relation to that unfortunate race, which prevailed in the civilized and enlightened portions of the world at the time of the Declaration of Independence and when the Constitution of the United States was framed and adopted. But the public history of every European nation displays it in a manner too plain to be mistaken. They had, for more than a century before, been regarded as beings of an inferior order and altogether unfit to associate with the white race, either in social or political relations, and so far inferior that they had no rights which the white man was bound to respect, and that the Negro might justly and lawfully be reduced to slavery for his benefit. He was bought and sold and treated as an ordinary article of merchandise and traffic whenever a profit could be made by it. This opinion was at that time fixed and universal in the civilized portion of the white race. It was regarded as an axiom in morals as well as in politics, which no one thought of disputing or supposed to be open to dispute, and men in every grade and position in society daily and habitually acted upon it in their private pursuits as well as in matters of public concern, without doubting for a moment the correctness of this opinion. And in no nation was this opinion more firmly fixed or more uniformly acted upon than by the English government and the English people. They not only seized them on the coast of Africa and sold them or held them in slavery for their own use, but they took them as ordinary articles of merchandise to every country where they could make a profit on them, and were far more extensively engaged in this commerce than any other nation in the world. Very clear. Very, very, very clear, right? Mm-hmm. The last quote that I usually talk about from Dred Scott versus Sandford is this one here. But there are two clauses in the Constitution which point directly and specifically to the Negro race as a separate class of persons, and show clearly that they were not regarded as a portion of the people or citizens of the government then formed. And then you see that in two areas. You see it in the slave importation clause, and then you also see it in the 3/5 clause Constitution. These are the two areas that Taney is speaking about when he says that there's two areas in the Constitution that show specifically that they are not considered a part of the people. I can't, let's see here, maybe it's this one here. Here we go. Any person who is not essentially a free white person counted as 3/5 of a free individual for the purposes of determining congressional representation. And that's part of the Constitution as well. And that's what, and then that one, and then the slave importation clause. Those are the two areas that Mr. Taney is speaking about when he says there are two clauses in the Constitution which point directly and specifically to the Negro race as a separate class of persons, and show clearly that they were not regarded as a portion of the people or citizens of the government then formed.
Got it.
So that was a very, very striking. Now, we were already moving into the Civil War, which is all about slavery. And this was not the reason why the Civil War broke out, but it was a big it was a big part of it. Accelerated us into the Civil War very rapidly after that point. This is definitely a turning point that pushed us more into essentially the Civil War, right? So we're going to the Civil War. We're coming out of the Civil War now.
So a question before we go there, like, what was it about this specific judgment that got us into the Civil War? That they're saying that essentially, Negroes, as they put it, like, we're not full people, or they didn't have a classification?
Well, they can't become citizens, and their children can't become citizens.
Okay.
So you're basically your whole bloodline's fucked, essentially.
Okay, got it. So they had to go into the Civil War in order to. That was one of the issues that was to be resolved by the Civil War.
Well, the primary issue in the Civil War was, should the South be able to have slaves? The South wanted slaves, and the North didn't want the South to have slaves. The South said, fuck you, we're going to break off and create our own fucking country then. Go fuck yourself. That was the Confederate States. And then that's the Civil War. You have the Union in the North, which is the original America that was there since 1776. And then you have the South, which was breaking away as the Confederate States, which basically was creating a whole new country by taking all of the southern states and breaking them off and saying, you guys can have your country up north with no slavery, and then we're just going to have our country down south, and it's going to have slavery. And Abraham Lincoln did not like that. He did not like the idea of the South breaking off and becoming a separate country. And he was like, no, we're not doing that. And that's the breakout of the Civil War. And then the Civil War went on for, I think, 4 years, something like that. And then as we're coming out of the Civil War, you have this thing called the Reconstruction, which was very extensive in terms of everything had to be reconstructed. The South, which had ceded from the Union, they had to bring it back in, and it had to, reconnect back into the Union. So the entire country was essentially rebuilt during that time period. And the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and the 15th Amendment all came out at the same time, right around that same time, right after the Civil War, because it was all part of the Reconstruction. How do we figure this out? How do we give black people, the released slaves? How do we give them some kind of citizenship? What was happening was they were freed after the 14th Amendment was released. But the problem was they couldn't gain citizenship. And basically what that meant was they could be treated like shit, beaten, killed practically, and no one could sue or have any protections at all. They had no protections at all whatsoever from the white people. I mean, you could just kick their front door in, walk in, start beating up their whole family, shoot their kids and walk out. And there really wasn't anything anybody could do about it because they weren't citizens and they couldn't gain citizenship. So the blacks, the Negro slaves at the time period, they were actually kind of in worse shape after the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment than they were when they were slaves, because when they were slaves, they were protected by their owners. So they had even less protections after being freed than they did when they were slaves. And because of that issue, and the core of that issue was the Dred Scott versus Sanford case, there was a case that was done to try to fix all of this and try to give the colored people of African blood something of which to protect them. And the case that figured all this out was the case called the Slaughterhouse cases. And the Slaughterhouse cases is essentially where they said in the case, and we're going to read a lot of the quotes on this, is very important. It's the most important case that's ever happened in the entire history of the American culture. This is the birth, essentially. The 14th Amendment was the birth of the U.S. citizen class. But when the 14th Amendment was released, there was so much confusion and no one really understood what the hell the 14th Amendment was trying to do. So this case was the first case where they clarified all that. So the U.S. citizen category was created technically with the 14th Amendment, but because there was so much confusion and because people just couldn't figure it out, it wasn't really clear as to what that even meant until this case, the Slaughterhouse cases. And in this case, they describe in great detail what exactly is a U.S. citizen and why are we making it and what's it supposed to do and how is it supposed to work, right? So here's the quotes. And, this guy here is a great guy, another great guy to take a look at, Samuel Freeman Miller. This is the guy who is giving this opinion on this case, right? Samuel Freeman Miller was a doctor, and he was teaching himself law, and he taught himself law, and then he became part of the. He taught himself law for 5 or 10 years while he was a doctor at the same time. He got into, I think, the courts at some point in time. Then he got into, on July 16th, 1862, Abraham Lincoln nominated Miller to the Supreme Court. And then he served on the Supreme Court for 28 years. He died October 13th, 1890 at the age of 74. So he started in the Supreme Court 1862, and the Slaughterhouse cases is 1873. So 11 years into his 28 years on the Supreme Court, we have this case called the Slaughterhouse cases. Now, Mr. Miller felt very, very strongly about freeing the slaves, and he had been for a long time. In fact, the reason why he got into law and became a justice and moved his way all the way to the Supreme Court was because he wanted to use that power to free these slaves. He was very, very, very politically motivated by freeing the slaves and had been since the beginning. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the whole reason why he even taught himself law. That he literally taught himself law as a doctor, got into the judicial system, moved all the way up the ranks to the Supreme Court, was in the Supreme Court for 11 years, all leading up to this moment in the Slaughterhouse cases. And that's why I believe of all of the Supreme Court justices that were on the Supreme Court at that time, he wasn't the chief judge. He was an associate judge. They had him be the one to give this final opinion because he had been working for this for like over 2 decades. For all this conspiracy theory people out there who think that, all these judges are all pieces of shit, it's just not true at all. Mr. Miller cared so much about, he would die. He devoted his whole life to trying to figure out how to release the Negro slaves. Like literally, like he is the reason why they're even not in chains. I'm dead serious, right? So with that said, here's what Mr. Miller has to say in the Slaughterhouse cases, right? The first section of the 14th article, to which our attention is more specially invited, opens with a definition of citizenship. Now, he's speaking about the first clause of the 14th Amendment. And, everyone has read this a million times. And
just for the viewer, I just want to clarify one thing. This is what our entire current citizenship system is based upon, correct?
The Slaughterhouse cases is the absolute dead center core of all citizenship legally, the entire passport system, all of the immigration, everything, all the way down. If you dug with a shovel and you dug and you dug and you dug until you couldn't dig anymore, complete solid rock, there's nothing below, you can't go 1 millimeter farther, you would be in the Slaughterhouse cases.
Okay. And just to, and just to be clear, I had researched this. This is still active. Everything you are saying is still in effect. It is not, new case hasn't come along and nullified anything within here. So
yeah, if we go to the Foreign Affairs Manual, Foreign Affairs Manual quotes from Supreme Court regarding citizenship. I don't know if we're going to be able to find it that easily. Let's see what comes up. Oh, wow. Yeah. So 8 FAM 102.3. This is an unclassified documentation from what's called the Foreign Affairs Manual, which is basically a manual that explains the functionality of our passport system. 8 FAM 102.3 is entitled Supreme Court Decisions. If you go down into the various Supreme Court decisions, you'll see letter C right away. They list the Slaughterhouse cases.
Got it. Yep.
You'll see some other ones here, but you see there's not very many. There's just a handful of cases for this first section. The first section is entitled Early Supreme Court Decisions on Extent of Acquisition of U.S. Citizenship at Birth under the Constitution if born within the United States. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different quotes that are listed. One of the quotes is the Slaughterhouse cases, as you can see in subsection C.
Got it.
And this quote that they list here, we are going to be reading as well. It recognized that the abrogation of the infamous Dred Scott decision, which had held that descendants of slaves were not included as citizens under the Constitution. Right. So with that said, yes, it not only is the Slaughterhouse cases is just as active today, right now, August 8th, 2025, as it was in the afternoon of April 14th, 1873. And I don't know why people find that to be shocking. It's not shocking at all. There's tons of case law. There's case law from 1790. There's case law from 1802. A lot of our financial system is built still to this day off of case law from the early 1800s. And in the late 1800s, there's a series of cases called the legal tender cases, which occurred right around the Civil War. Those cases are literally the entire substructure of Federal Reserve notes, what's in your wallet. So the idea that this stuff from the 1800s is not still active is just completely hilarious and ridiculous, because most of the serious substructure of all our current law is from stuff from 150, 200 years ago. So that's just ridiculous and insane. With that said, like I said, the 14th Amendment, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. So you always see people being like, oh yeah, so that means anyone born or naturalized in the United States. It's all just one citizenship. Well, no, not at all. We've already established we the people in the preamble. And then you go into the slave importation clause, and all of a sudden it's these persons, and then the 14th Amendment says persons. And the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th all came out at the same time. And the 15th Amendment was to give voting rights specifically to the blacks. So the 13th Amendment was to release the blacks. The 15th Amendment was to give the blacks voting rights. But then, all of a sudden, the 14th, which uses the word persons, is for the whites too. No, that's ridiculous. It absolutely wasn't. And Mr. Miller was very clear about that. So we're going to read that here. The first section of the 14th article, to which our attention is more specially invited, opens with a definition of citizenship. Not only citizenship of the United States, but citizenship of the states. No such definition was previously found in the Constitution, nor had any attempt been made to define it by act of Congress. It had been the occasion of much discussion in the courts, by the executive departments, and in the public journals. What he's saying is there's a lot of confusion on this, and nobody seems to know what the fuck it's talking about. That's what he's saying right here. He's like, everybody's talking about this, and everybody's confused, basically, right? It had been said by eminent judges that no man was a citizen of the United States, except as he was a citizen of one of the states composing the Union. Those, therefore, who had been born and resided always in the District of Columbia or in the territories, though within the United States, were not citizens. So what he's saying is that up until this point, if you weren't born in a state, but you were born in what's considered the territory of the United States, so areas like Guam, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, American Samoa, the Swains Islands, District of Columbia. These are areas that aren't considered states. They're considered the District of Columbia or the territories. Anyone born in those areas don't have any type of sort of citizenship because they're not states. Those were not considered one of the sovereign nation states composing the Union. So if you weren't born in a state, you had no citizenship. And there was no such thing as this U.S. citizen up until right now. And we're going to talk about what they're talking about here. Then all the Negro race who had been recently been made free men referring to the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, were still not only not citizens, but were incapable of becoming so by anything short of an amendment to the Constitution. To remove this difficulty primarily, and to establish a clear and comprehensive definition of citizenship, which should declare what should constitute citizenship of the United States and also citizenship of a state, the first clause of the first section was framed, referring to the first clause of the first section of the 14th Amendment. This is the paragraph he's referring to right here, right? So the first observation we have to make on this clause, meaning this clause, is that it puts at rest both the questions which we stated to have been the subject of differences of opinion. It declares that persons may be citizens of the United States without regard of their citizenship of a particular state, and it overturns the Dred Scott decision by making all persons born within the United States and subject to its jurisdiction citizens of the United States. If you're still confused, here's where he gives it to you. That its main purpose was to establish the citizenship of the Negro can admit of no doubt. And you can see here, everyone in all these cases, they're all arguing about what it means subject to its jurisdiction. He fucking tells you what it means right here. The phrase subject to its jurisdiction was intended to exclude from its operation children of ministers, consuls, and citizens or subjects of foreign states born within the United States. That fucking simple. You've never heard anyone talk about that because nobody fucking knows and nobody knows even where to look. And this is the case, right? The next observation is more important in view of the arguments of counsel in the present case. It is that the distinction between citizenship of the United States and citizenship of a state is clearly recognized and established. Not only may a man be a citizen of the United States without being a citizen of a state, but an important element is necessary to convert the former into the latter. He must reside within the state to make him a citizen of it, but it is only necessary that he be born or naturalized in the United States to be a citizen of the Union. So what that means is if you're born in the District of Columbia or Guam or Puerto Rico, that's okay. You're going to have this other class of citizenship called a U.S. citizen class. If you would like to become a state citizen, which is only for what's called a free white person, all you need to do is just move into the state of which you want to become a citizen of as a white person, and you're going to go through all the same steps as anyone else who's going through the Naturalization Act of 1802. You're going to go through that process, which means you have to basically reside in the states for 5 years, 1 year in the state where you're going to become a citizen. So if you were born in the District of Columbia and you want to become a citizen of California and you are white, you're going to move into California and you're going to be, the way it works is you're a resident for 5 years. And then after you're a resident in California for 5 years, you become a citizen, and then you no longer are a resident. At that point, your residence becomes a domicile. And this is really important because the only people who can pay taxes, the only people who can vote under the 15th Amendment, the only people who can have a driver's license are residents. State citizens who are white, who are actually domiciled in a state, are not allowed to have a driver's license. They're not allowed to pay taxes. And in fact, if they do any of that, they should go to prison for up to 3 years for a felony violation of 18 U.S.C. 911. 18 U.S.C. 911 states, whoever falsely and willfully represents himself to be a citizen of the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned for not more than 3 years or both. So in order to file, let's say, a W-9 tax form, you have to state, under penalty of perjury, mind you, in Section 3, under penalty of perjury, I certify that I am a U.S. citizen or other U.S. person defined below. Let's go down below and take a look at what that means. Definition of a U.S. person. The first one here, an individual who is a U.S. citizen or U.S. resident alien. So what does that mean? It means that if you were born in the District of Columbia or in Guam or in American Samoa, you would be a U.S. citizen. You are essentially going to become a resident. If you're naturalizing into a state, you would only be a U.S. resident alien for the first 5 years of you being here. So you could have this W-9 form filled out the first 5 years you're here. If you're born in France and you move to California and you're a white person and you don't want to be a U.S. citizen, you want to be a state citizen, totally fine. But the thing is, you would have to pay taxes the first 5 years because you're not a citizen yet. Once you become a state citizen and you complete naturalization process, if you continue to pay taxes after that point, you would become a felon under 18 U.S.C. 911. That also includes driver's licenses. You have to prove that you're a resident in order to get a driver's license. If I attempted to prove that I am a resident of California, I'd be going to prison for up to 3 years. I can't have a driver's license. It's physically impossible. And people say, oh, well, Brandon, how do you drive? Well, U.S. citizens don't have the 9th Amendment. Only state citizens have the 9th Amendment. And we can get into how that works later in this. The 9th Amendment is basically it is your driver's license. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. The 9th Amendment is your concealed carry permit. I can't get a concealed carry permit. I'm not a U.S. resident alien or U.S. citizen. You have to be one of those to get a concealed carry permit. You have to be one of those to pay federal income taxes. You have to be one of those to get a driver's license. You have to be one of those to get a license to practice law, a license to practice medicine. State citizens cannot have any of those things. They don't need them. The 9th Amendment is the license that they need for all of those things. Fishing license, don't need it. You've got a 9th Amendment. Driver's license, don't need it. Got a 9th Amendment. It's not just don't need it. It's I'd go to prison if I tried to get one. So it's a very different lifestyle. The 9th Amendment, that's it. That's your license to do literally everything. You can't hurt people. You can't lower other people's standard of living. You can't harm people or create damage to other people under the 9th Amendment. That would be a common law claim. That'd be a cause of action. But anything that would not fall under those categories all falls under the 9th Amendment. And there's so many people in the sovereign movement that are like, oh, you don't need a driver's license. That's bullshit. If you're a state citizen and you have one, you're a fucking felon and you should be behind bars. State citizens cannot, oh yeah, you don't need a driver's license. No, that's complete fucking bullshit. If you're a state citizen, meaning you're a white person who's a citizen of a state and you have a driver's license, you should be put in jail for up to 3 years. You should be behind fucking bars. If I was on the jury, I'd be putting you behind bars. You'd be in prison. White people are not allowed to have a driver's license. White people are not allowed to pay federal income taxes. It's not, I used to say, like a lot of the sovereign crowd, income taxes are voluntary. Yeah, it says that, but that's not the reality. The reality is U.S. citizens and resident aliens have to pay income tax, and white people, if they do it, they're going to prison. If you're white and you were born in a state and you're paying federal income tax, if I was on your jury, you'd be going to prison.
Wow.
Crystal clear, right? So here's the next line from Mr. Miller in the Slaughterhouse cases. It is quite clear then that there is a citizenship of the United States and a citizenship of a state which are distinct from each other and which depend upon different characteristics or circumstances in the individual. And really, the circumstances is A, are you white or not? That's the first question. And B, are you in a state or not? That's it. When he says they depend upon different characteristics or circumstances in the individual, he's saying their race and their location. If you're black and you're of African descent and you're in California, sorry, but the only thing you're ever going to be able to become is what's called a permanent resident, which is what you see on all the tax forms. You see that on the driver's license application, permanent resident. The term permanent resident means you aren't fucking white and you can never, ever, ever become a state citizen. It's completely racist and it's just a big fuck you. That's the term permanent resident. You're a resident for 5 years. If you read the Naturalization Act of 1802, you're a resident for 5 years, then you become a citizen. Okay? So here's the next line. You can see how clear this is. He's going to say it over and over and over in different ways. He's trying to be as clear as possible. We think this distinction and its explicit recognition in this amendment of great weight in this argument, because the next paragraph of this same section, which is the one mainly relied on by the plaintiffs in error, speaks only of privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States and does not speak of those of citizens of the several states. Of the privileges and immunities of the citizen of the United States and the privileges and immunities of the citizen of the state and what they respectively are, we will presently consider, but we wish to state here that it is only the former which are placed by this clause under the protection of the federal Constitution, and that the latter, meaning state citizens, whatever they may be, are not intended to have any additional protection by this paragraph of the amendment.
So the 14th Amendment basically doesn't apply at all. Like for
white people. To white people.
For white people, it's the first. Sorry, the white people, it's the first 10 amendments, or
that's correct. The 14th Amendment is basically the Bill of Rights for Negroes.
That is actually a mind-blowing way to put it. Really well put.
The 14th Amendment is like basically the first 10 amendments for white people, all for one amendment specifically for the released Negro slaves. So by using any sort of 14th Amendment provision, you're telling the government that you are a released Negro slave of African descent. You're not white. If you use the 14th Amendment, they say, okay, great. So you're not white. Thank you. And that includes all of Title 42, by the way. All of Title 42 is only for the released Negro slaves under the 14th Amendment. So, and I can prove that to you very rapidly. We're going to get into that in just a moment. So, last line here from the Slaughterhouse cases. If then there is a difference between the privileges and immunities belonging to a citizen of the United States as such and those belonging to a citizen of the state as such, the latter, meaning state citizens, must rest for their security and protection where they have heretofore rested, for they are not embraced by this paragraph of the amendment. And he doesn't need to talk about the rest of it, because if the first one doesn't apply to you, none of the rest of it does either. And that's why he doesn't go into each individual section. Section 1 is all he needs. He's like, it's not for white people. Fuck you. What are you doing? It has nothing to do with you. This is specifically for the blacks, because they're in even worse shape now than they were before they were fucking freed. That's why we're doing this. Okay. So then the next day, so April 14th, we can get into this case. This comes from the California Supreme Court. It's a case called Ellen R. Van Valkenburg versus Albert Brown. This was in California Supreme Court around that same time period. Obviously, a lot was happening, so they're trying to figure it out, right? Very, very clear. Very, very, very clear. I use this one in California a lot, just because it's so clear. This justice, William T. Wallace, he did a great job in making this just fucking absolutely crystal clear. No white person born within the limits of the United States and subject to their jurisdiction, or born without those limits and subsequently naturalized under their laws, owes the status of citizenship to the recent amendments to the federal Constitution. The history and aim of the 14th Amendment is well known, and the purpose had in view in its adoption well understood. That purpose was to confer the status of citizenship upon a numerous class of persons domiciled within the limits of the United States who could not be brought within the operation of the naturalization laws because native born and whose birth, though native, had at the same time left them without the status of citizenship. These persons were not white persons, but were, in the main, persons of African descent who had been held in slavery in this country, or if having themselves never been held in slavery, were the native-born descendants of slaves. Prior to the adoption of the 14th Amendment, it was settled that neither slaves, nor those who had been such, nor the descendants of these, though native and freeborn, were capable of becoming citizens of the United States. Obviously, the case that established that was Dred Scott versus Sanford. The 13th Amendment, though conferring the boon of freedom upon native-born persons of African blood, boon means benefit, the benefit of freedom, had yet left them under an insuperable bar, which means impossible to overcome bar as to citizenship, and it was mainly to remedy this condition that the 14th Amendment was adopted. And then so we have the slaughterhouse cases. That was it. That was the
it couldn't be clear. Like it's pretty. So basically, 13th onward is basically for who was formerly slave.
Non-whites.
Non-whites. Got it.
Because he talks about that in the slaughterhouse case. I don't have that on this page, but if I go to the case law resources, he actually describes that as well, but I don't typically talk about that because it gets a little confusing. But it in order to really understand it, you have to look at this. It's another quote in the slaughterhouse case. It's just here. We do not say that no one else but the Negro can share in this protection, meaning the protections of the 14th Amendment. Both the language and spirit of these articles, meaning the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, are to have their fair and just weight in any question of construction. Undoubtedly, while Negro slavery alone was in the mind of the Congress which proposed the 13th article, it forbids any other kind of slavery now or hereafter. If Mexican peonage or the Chinese coolie labor system shall develop slavery of the Mexican or Chinese race within our territory, this amendment may safely be trusted to make it void. And so if other rights are assailed by the states which properly and necessarily fall within the protection of these articles, that protection will apply, though the party interested may not be of African descent. But what we do say, and what we wish to be understood is that in any fair and just construction of any section or phrase of these amendments, it is necessary to look to the purpose which we have said was the pervading spirit of them all, the evil which they were designed to remedy, and the process of continued addition to the Constitution until that purpose was supposed to be accomplished as far as constitutional law can establish it. So what he's saying here is also very interesting. He's saying this might seem a little weird and it might seem a little convoluted, but this is the best we can do under the constitutional restraints. We can't redefine citizenship. We're not allowed to do that. This is the best we can do, basically, is what he's saying, right? Which is true, 100%. They weren't pieces of shit. They really weren't. They were really trying. They were not willing to do anything unconstitutional at all. So they were trying to figure out, how do we fix this thing without we can't fuck the Constitution at all. We can't. It's impossible. So we got to figure something else out, right? So we have the slaughterhouse cases on April 14th of 1873. The very next day, April 15th, 1873, we have a case called Bradwell v. State, Supreme Court case, which is also given, the final opinion was also given by Mr. Miller. Now, we're going to see him put the slaughterhouse cases into action 24 hours later. This is what Mr. Miller has to say. The record in this case is not perfect, but it may be fairly taken that the plaintiff asserts her right to a license on the grounds, among others, that she was a citizen of the United States, and that having been a citizen of Vermont at one time, she was in the state of Illinois entitled to any right granted to citizens of the latter state. So you can see there's a lot of confusion. People aren't used to what's going on yet. And Mr. Miller's going to try his best to kind of get everything straightened out. It's obviously complicated. Right. So she's trying to get a license to practice law, and there's confusion because she's saying she's a citizen of the United States, but she might not realize just yesterday that was redefined completely. It doesn't mean what she thinks it means, right? And so he's saying that she was a citizen of Vermont, probably her birth state, but then she's also saying she lives in Illinois. So we actually have 3 different citizenship classes here at play, right? So here's what Mr. Miller has to say about that. As regards to the provision of the Constitution that citizens of each state shall be entitled to all the privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states, the plaintiff in her affidavit has stated very clearly a case to which it is inapplicable. The protection designed by that clause, meaning the 14th Amendment, as has been repeatedly held, has no application to a citizen of the state whose laws are being complained of. If a plaintiff was a citizen of the state of Illinois, that provision of the Constitution, meaning the 14th Amendment, gave her no protection against its courts or its legislation. Now, keep in mind, if you have no protections under the 14th Amendment, you also have no duties under the 14th Amendment. Taxation, driver's licenses, fishing licenses, business licenses, license to practice law, license to practice medicine, license to do anything is all under the 14th Amendment. So you don't have the right to do any of those things as a white state citizen. You can't do any of those things. You don't have any of the protections of the 14th Amendment because you don't need them. They've got nothing to do with you. The 14th Amendment has absolutely nothing to do with you. And anything attached or under the 14th Amendment, such as federal income tax or driver's licenses, also have nothing to do with you. You can think of driver's licenses and fishing licenses and concealed carry permits. Think of it like France. Like it's like French licenses. You wouldn't go to like France to get a license to carry a gun. It's the same. It's just so ridiculous when you really understand how this works. It's got nothing to do with you if you're a white guy and you're in a state. It just has absolutely nothing to do with you. And it's even more serious than that. You become a felon by possessing those licenses, and you should be put in prison. That's the reality of the situation. So people talk a lot of shit and they say things like, oh, I'm not going to get a driver's license. I don't need it. It's way more serious than that. If you have a driver's license, but you say you're a white man in a state as a state citizen, you should be behind bars. To tell you the truth, you really should. That's where you should be.
I got a practical question before we continue, because this is amazing and it seems as though if you ever have problems, you could always cite this stuff to restore your rights. Let's say some crazy cop, like what happened to me, you know what I mean? Like, so what do you do when the cop or the authority doesn't know all this information? They do something stupid, like arrest you for not having a license, arrest you for, I guess, saying that, hey, you don't have a CCW when it's illegal for you to have a CCW. You just got to sue them basically at that point, right? For the restoration of your rights and damages.
So what's happening is they're attempting to procure you into committing a felony under 18 USC 911. So for example, if a cop pulls me over and says, you need a driver's license, I'd say, oh my God, I'd say, officer, are you attempting to procure me to commit a felony violation of 18 USC 911? I am not allowed to have a driver's license. If I had a driver's license right now, you would have to arrest me. There would be no other options. I would be arrested and arraigned for a felony violation of 18 USC 911, which would be up to 3 years in prison, which is the same level as low-level manslaughter. So 18 USC 901, having a driver's license as a white state citizen is a serious felony. It's low-level manslaughter. It's on the same level. Low-level manslaughter is up to 3 years in prison. 18 USC 901 is up to 3 years in prison. So think of it as manslaughter. That's how serious it is. You're at work. You're using, you have big, huge machines. You're responsible for fixing the machines. You were drunk or didn't sleep very well one day, and you didn't fix the machine very well. The machine exploded, killing another employee. That would be like manslaughter, probably, right? Having a driver's license as a white state citizen is on that same level in terms of the disciplinary actions that you could be facing criminally. It's a criminal violation. Now, for the officer, it's even worse for the officer. Because if the officer attempts to procure another to commit any perjury, he is guilty of subornation of perjury, and he can now be imprisoned for up to 5 years. So if an officer pulls you over and you're white and you're a state citizen and he says you need a driver's license, he's putting his own throat on the chopping block. Big time. Subornation of perjury. In USC 1622, right? So procures another to commit any perjury. And then 18 USC 911 is essentially a type of perjury, right? Because you're saying something or representing yourself as something that isn't true. So that's how I would handle that situation, right?
Copy.
I can't have a driver's license. If I tried to get one, I'd be going to prison. End of story. Okay? Now, continuing on this Bradwell v. State, because it's a really interesting case that shows the Slaughterhouse cases in action. The plaintiff seems to have seen this difficulty and attempts to avoid it by stating she was born in Vermont. While she remained in Vermont, that circumstance made her a citizen of that state, but she states at the same time that she is a citizen of the United States and that she is now and has been for many years past a resident of Chicago in the state of Illinois. Resident means non-citizen. It means you're there, but you're not a citizen. Right? We do not here mean to say that there may not be a temporary residence in one state with intent to return to another, which will not create citizenship in the former. But the plaintiff states nothing to take her case out of the definition of citizenship of a state as defined by the first section of the 14th Amendment. In regard to that amendment, counsel for the plaintiff in this court truly says that there are certain privileges and immunities which belong to a citizen of the United States as such. Otherwise, it would be nonsense for the 14th Amendment to prohibit a state from abridging them. And he proceeds to argue that admission to the bar of a state of a person who possesses the requisite learning and character is one of the things which the state may not deny. So he's basically saying this is all bullshit. This has nothing to do with us, because none of this falls under the 14th Amendment because she's a fucking state citizen. And you can see here the definitions of domicile and resident. You can see right here, I have them for you because you really have to understand these. Domicile, the place where a man has his true, fixed, and permanent home and principal establishment, and to which, whenever he is absent, he has the intention of returning. Just like he said. What did he say? He says, we do not mean to say that there may not be a temporary residence in one state with intent to return it to another, which will not create citizenship in the former. domicile, not for a mere special or temporary purse, but with the present intention of making a permanent home for an unlimited or indefinite period. Here's another definition under domicile. Domicile and residence, however, are frequently distinguished in that domicile is the home, the fixed place of habitation, while residence is a transient place of dwelling. A state citizen wouldn't have a residence. Mm-hmm. That's why everything is resident or residence, even California voting. Everything, voter registration, driver's license, everything, all of it. A U.S. citizen and resident of California. A released Negro slave and foreigner who's not really domiciled here in California.
Wow.
That's what this is saying. Those are the people that can vote because voting is under the 15th Amendment, which is only for the Negroes. Do you see state citizen, a free white person who is a state citizen? Do you see that anywhere on this list?
Wow.
Every single one says a U.S. citizen and then more shit. A U.S. citizen and a member of the uniform, a U.S. citizen and an eligible spouse, a U.S. citizen and an activated National Guard, a U.S. citizen residing outside the U.S. temporarily, a U.S. citizen residing outside the U.S. indefinitely, a U.S. citizen and has never resided in the U.S. Don't you find that one kind of interesting?
I mean, so you can't, like, as a white person, you can't vote. And obviously, I know a lot of us think that it's useless voting, but how do you address that?
If I voted, I'd be going to prison.
Mm-hmm.
For 18 U.S.C. 901. I'd be going straight to fucking prison, bro.
Mm.
I'd be in a cell getting butt fucked by Bubba in about 10 minutes. I can't vote. So that whole conversation, I know it's big in the MAGA movement. Is it worth voting? Is it not? It's totally irrelevant for me. I don't even want to talk about it. It's got nothing to do with me. I'm not going to fucking prison for manslaughter. I ain't going to prison for fucking voting. Same thing.
Yeah.
You ain't gonna see me in the voter booth because I don't want a dick in my ass. Real simple. Not complicated. Not complicated. It's not complicated at all.
I mean, some of us feel that way after voting, so
yeah. So resident/residence. Here's some definitions, further clarifying the difference. As domicile and residence are usually in the same place, they are frequently used as if they have the same meaning, but they are not identical terms. For a person may have two places of residence, as in the city and country, but only one domicile. Residence means living in a particular locality, but domicile means living in that locality with intent to make it a fixed and permanent home. Residence simply requires bodily presence as an inhabitant in a given place, while domicile requires bodily presence in that place and also an intention to make it one's domicile. Your domicile, if you're domiciled in Utah, but you have a vacation home in the Hamptons, you have a vacation home in Naples, and you have a vacation home in San Diego, that means you have your domicile, which is Utah, and then you have 3 residence homes. So your actual citizenship would be, you wouldn't be a U.S. citizen, you wouldn't be a citizen of New York, you wouldn't be a citizen of Florida, you wouldn't be a citizen of California, you'd be a citizen of Utah, who is a resident in New York while he's at his Hampton home, who is a resident of Florida when he's at his Naples home, and who is a resident of California when he's in his San Diego home. But let's say you decide, fuck it, I don't want to live in Utah anymore. I'm going to shift my domicile from the Utah home to the San Diego home. You have now become a citizen of California, And now when you're in your Utah home, you would be a resident of Utah at that time, because now your domicile is located in California, and now your other 3 homes in Utah, New York, and Florida all become residences. The problem is everyone says everything is a residence all the time. My lease here from my apartment says resident all over it. Residence parking is the sign above. This is not my residence. Never has been. This is my domicile. Completely different. Only white people can domicile. So when everything says resident or residence, it's actually extremely fucking racist. And that's not just some like liberal bullshit. The word resident or residence is like seriously racist as fuck, the way that it's used in today's society. And you see it all over the news. Local residents, residents, residents. It's like literally a hypnotism term. Resident and residence. I am not a fucking resident, and neither are you, and neither is fucking anybody else. And to say that is basically saying fuck the blacks, in my opinion. That's the way I look at it, right? It's racist as fuck to use the word resident, because most people don't have 5 fucking vacation homes. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Totally. So because the resident is supposed to be your not permanent home, your not permanent location, you're basically, it's almost like elitism to assume that people have residences.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the last definition, very clear here. Residence demands less intimate local ties than domicile, but domicile allows absence for an indefinite period if intent to return remains. Holding that residence and domicile are synonymous terms, residence has a meaning dependent on context and purpose of statute. Words residence, and domicile may have an identical or variable meaning depending on subject matter and context of statute. So they basically what this says is they're gonna gaslight the fuck out of you. If you start saying domicile versus residence and all the stuff I'm talking about, they're just gonna gaslight you. Oh no, residence doesn't mean that. It just means where someone lives, but it's all bullshit. There's domicile and there's residence.
Mm-hmm.
White people who are citizens of a state, domicile in that state. The blacks have no ability to domicile. They are basically blocked forever from domiciling.
So theoretically, this is actually kind of interesting because my domicile, you have to be 5 years somewhere for it to be your domicile, right?
Yes.
Okay, so but is it like 5 years permanently you've been there?
Well, where were you born though? Weren't you born in America? Where were you born?
I was born in Canada, Toronto.
Okay, yes. So if you want to be a state citizen, well, it's 5 years in the States, 1 year in the state of which you complete your domicile.
Okay. I was trying to figure out because theoretically I'm still a resident by your definition of California, but I'm domiciled in Nevada. That's what it sounds like.
How long have you been in Nevada?
5 years.
And how long have you been in the United States?
Oh, like since like 89 or something like
that. So that 5th year that you were here, so you arrived, what year did you arrive in the United States?
Like 89.
And what state were you in 94?
California.
And how long had you been in California in 94?
5 years.
So you were a citizen of California in 94.
Okay. Got it.
And you were domiciled. At that point in 1994, your residence converted into a domicile, and you just didn't even know it.
Got it.
And if you had a driver's license, you should have turned that in 1994. You should have let the IRS know that you'll no longer be filing a tax return in 1994, because if you did, you'd be going to prison. If you had a fishing license or concealed carry permit, you're supposed to turn all those in 1994. 1994 would have been the point when you have to turn everything in. You can't have any of that shit anymore.
Okay.
A few other quotes here that are interesting, but we've already really clear. I mean, this is so clear. I mean, we've already established this, and then I go on and we get into all sorts of definition of the word Negro in great detail. What does it really mean? It doesn't really mean anything when you get down deep into it. It's basically a black man with a certain amount of African blood, but there's no way to determine that, and they didn't have DNA tests, and the way they determined it was like craniologists and like eugenics. Basically, it was bullshit. So the definition of the word Negro really, I mean, at the end of the day, doesn't really even mean anything because you can't prove it, and it was all just bullshit. So it's just eugenics, like literally, like full blown eugenics.
Wow.
Right? So then in 1886, we have a case called Santa Clara County v. Southern Pacific Railroad Company. This is the case where they expanded the definition of the word persons to include legal fictions such as corporations, trusts, associations, partnerships, companies. And since Santa Clara County versus Pacific Railroad Company, that's pretty much it. The definition of the word person has been pretty much the same since 1886. And here's the tax code definition of the word person. The term person shall be construed to mean and include an individual, a trust, estate, partnership, association, company, or corporation. This word individual, it only has two meanings. A non-white person, a white person wouldn't be included in the definition of the word individual, or a special kind of corporation called a sole proprietorship. And the way that you can prove that is you go to 26 CFR 701, 301.7701-11. And you're going to see here that it says, for purposes of this chapter, the term social security number means the taxpayer identifying number of an individual or an estate. So the SSN is just an EIN for two types of entities, an individual or an estate. Now we're going to go over to the SS4 form, which is the application for EIN number. And we're going to go down and we're going to look at where it has the various types of entity in box 9A. And we're going to look for these two types of entity, the individual and the estate. Estate is right here, SSN of decedent. Great. So now all we need to find now is the last thing that the SSN could possibly apply to, which is called an individual. Where do you see that at? Do you see it on there?
Sorry, tiny letters. Individual? No. Sole proprietorship, partnership, corporation, personal. Yeah, no, there's no individual.
Well, this one says SSN. Do you see the other one that says SSN?
Sole proprietorship.
Bingo. So for the purposes of this chapter, the term social security number means a taxpayer identifying number of an individual or estate. We take that and we go over here. We see estate. So now we only have one thing left to find, the term individual. They say SSN right here. So that means by process of elimination, the term sole proprietorship and the term individual mean the same thing. Mm-hmm. We go on the IRS website and look up IRS definition of sole proprietorship. It's an unincorporated business. Mm. So Brandon Joe Williams, in all capital letters, is an unincorporated business called a sole proprietorship. I'm not a business, separate from me. That sole proprietorship is a person. That sole proprietorship is an individual. And that individual has an EIN number called a social security number. Mm-hmm. And that's how it works.
So okay, and this is what you're talking about when you're saying that. You say, "My name is Brandon. I'm a white guy," and you say what? Representing a sole proprietorship or presenting a?
You have it. It's no different than having a business. You say, "Oh, I'm a business owner."
You're the business owner of Brandon Joe Williams in uppercase, basically.
That's correct, which is a sole proprietorship. And that sole proprietorship is the individual. If they use the word individual, that's got nothing to do with me. I'm the owner of that thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the business owner, but I am not myself by myself an individual.
Mm.
There is no definition anywhere that conclusively points to me using the term individual.
Got it.
The only term that points, the closest term that points to me within the statutory system is owner. The owner of the sole proprietorship. Okay. I'm the owner of the individual. Do you see?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it works.
So is this uppercase sole proprietorship? Is that a 14th Amendment sole proprietorship? I mean, what legal classification? Yes. Okay, got it. So you're basically a 1 to 10th Amendment white person presenting a 14th Amendment sole proprietorship.
100%. And that's as per that's the way it's been since Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad Company, 1886. That's when they expanded that definition of the 14th Amendment to include the legal fictions.
So you had this really funny saying where I'm just a white guy living my best white life.
Yeah. I'm just a white guy with a sole proprietorship. You know what I mean? That's all it is. It's that simple. You know what I mean?
Okay. Illustrate to us a little bit in practicality. I mean, you don't have to have a driver's, as long as you could obviously explain this legal argument. I mean, that's part 2 of my question is how do you deal with this when you deal with numbskulls that don't understand these laws? But practically speaking, no driver's license, no taxes. You got a legal argument to get out of all that nonsense.
It's not a legal argument to get out of it. It's that
you're not even allowed to have.
I don't want to be a felon.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't want to go to prison as a felon. Yeah.
Okay. How do you deal with it when you're dealing with some stupid cops?
I don't really deal with cops. They never bother me. But if I did, it would just be, I'm not a felon. I can't have a driver's license. If I did, I'd go to prison for 3 years. 18 U.S.C. 901. I mean, the reason why I don't have a driver's license, officer, is because I follow the law. That's the only reason why I don't have it. I mean,
and if they gave you a ticket or whatever, you just go into court and show this information.
Yeah, I go into court and I'd be like, it's the officer's trying to get me to commit felonies, Your Honor, and it's a felony violation of 18 U.S.C. 1622. And I would go down to the DA's office. I'd file an 18 U.S.C. 1622. I'd call the FBI. I'd file an actual federal complaint, criminal complaint, and then I would take that criminal complaint and I would enter it as evidence into the state case. And I'd say, I already filed a criminal complaint with the FBI, Your Honor. The officer is attempting to suborn me essentially into committing an 18 U.S.C. 911 violation, and I'm just not going to break the law, Your Honor. I don't want to go to prison. I'm a law-abiding state citizen. I'm a white guy with a sole proprietorship, and I'm not going to prison, and I'm not getting butt fucked, and not happening.
So it's almost like white privilege, what they call white privilege by today's standards, are embedded within the law. Like if you're a white guy, you have to take your white privilege or you're going to jail.
It's literally like the most white privilege that like whatever liberals think white privilege is, you can times it by like 20 million. Literally. Like white people don't need driver's licenses. White people don't need fishing licenses. White people can't pay taxes. White people, if I can throw someone on this table right here and perform brain surgery on them legally.
As long as you don't hurt them.
Right now, yeah. Well, if it's contractual and the contract says, this is a dumb fuck who doesn't know a damn thing about brain surgery, and I know that, I'm going into it. I already know that. He'll probably fucking kill me or turn me into a vegetable. If you have them sign that and they sign that and they're not drunk or fucked up and they sign it like of sound mind, I'll throw him on the slab right now and do brain surgery right here. And there's not a fucking thing the FBI can do about it. There's not a fucking thing the CIA can do about it. There's not a fucking thing the police can do about it. And there's not a fucking thing the sheriff's office can do about it. Not a fucking thing.
Okay, these legal questions, I mean, judges aren't used to seeing this stuff. I mean, but your hope is that, like, these are the things that they're constantly going to be faced with, because they don't, I'm sure modern judges don't know Slaughterhouse. They don't know the implications. They don't know these two class of a state citizen versus a U.S. citizen. I mean, it seems like the world is in for quite a learning curve, because it seems as though certain elements of Slaughterhouse were embedded into our laws, but a lot of it was kind of like just brushed under the rug. And now you seem like you're the guy that's bringing this all back.
The state citizenship class was brushed under the rug, but everything else is very active. I mean, but state citizenship was essentially brushed under the rug after Slaughterhouse because Slaughterhouse created that federal U.S. citizen category, which is under Congress. The entire purpose of the U.S. citizen category is actually very simple. The federal government wanted to prevent the states from treating the blacks like complete shit. So a U.S. citizen is in California. He's getting beaten by the cops. He can't do anything. He can't sue anybody. He gets treated like shit. No one will hire him. If there was a minimum wage, didn't apply to him. Fuck you. You're only going to get $1 an hour, you black piece of shit, or whatever it was, right? So what the U.S. citizenship class was it was a special federal citizenship class, so the federal government can protect the blacks in the states.
Because the reality, by the way, and this is where we have to think in terms of that time, was that most states would have probably been like, hell no, we're not going to make black citizens. So federally, they had to do it to create a classification. So all the states, whatever, northern states, I'm sure would be fine. Some southern states would be like, no way, we're giving these black people equal rights or whatever. So they did something really good. But within that, you still have white privilege that's basically first 10 amendments held all the way up here, and you don't have to do all that 14th Amendment stuff that's really for the freed slaves or black. I mean, it sounds like it's not just freed slaves, but black people, different ethnicities, people that are not European white by definition.
Non-whites. It's really non-whites. Yeah, the white privilege here is unbelievable. The white privilege is so far beyond anything. Anyway, the speed limit signs don't even apply to white people.
So if I'm like racing down the road, I'm going 150 miles an hour, cop pulls me over, obviously he might even impound my car. They might throw me in jail. But then I show up to the court, I say what they just did is BS. I charge them for my time. I said, okay, I just spent 72 hours in the slammer. I charge, whatever, $300 an hour. Here's the bill, basically.
Yeah, so the speed limit signs are based off of the California Vehicle Code. The California Vehicle Code is based off the 14th Amendment. Okay. Got it. So white privilege is, you don't even need to stop at stop signs. I mean, don't do that. You're going to get yourself hurt. But I'm just saying, you literally don't even legally need to stop at stop signs as a white person. I'm not kidding. So
I got to ask this, obviously, I was called the third assassin by Sheriff Chad Bianco for having guns and all that. So, I mean, all I basically had to be like, yo, I'm a white guy, because his whole thing was, oh, you're carrying unlawful guns. But because they have 14 bullets instead of 10, according to some weird California statutory laws that I didn't even know about. But I don't know if you know that, but apparently in California, they have to make every gun custom made, because everywhere else it's 14 bullet chambers or whatever.
For non-whites, yeah, that's true, yes.
So I should just be like, yo, I'm white.
That's correct. If you're white and you're a citizen of Nevada, well, that's an interesting conversation, because you would that's an interesting conversation, because you would technically be a resident in California.
Oh, so now because I'm visiting, I'm a resident in California, so now I'm under 14th Amendment.
No, that would be a very good, that's That's beyond anything I've ever even talked about. That would be a very interesting, complicated. That'd be like Bradwell v. State, the one where she's saying she's a U.S. citizen, but she was born in Vermont, but she's resident in the state of Illinois. That would be sort of like a complicated. It'd be a very similar situation. But ultimately, the answer would be no, absolutely not. You would not be needing to worry about the 10 bullet, whatever it is in California. You'd be basically in the same class that I'm in. I could manufacture machine guns. Seriously, and sell them legally.
Oh, wow.
Selling machine guns to U.S. citizens probably wouldn't work. If I manufactured machine guns, I'd only be able to sell them to white people.
Got it. Wow. This is quite an education, man. Is there anything else we need to go over? Or?
No, I mean, the treatise goes on and on and on, and then they started to incorporate all of the white man's rights of the Bill of Rights back into the U.S. citizen category. But a lot of those rights have not been reincorporated. The 9th and 10th Amendment have not been reincorporated into the incorporation doctrine. So, as you go down that treatise, you'll see I go through a lot of those cases. I walk you through qualified immunity. Qualified immunity for the police is based off of the 14th Amendment. The original case, I think it's like Pearson versus Ray. It's actually a case where there was a bunch of black and white, but they didn't care about the white people. They only cared about the black people that went to like Tennessee bus stop or truck stop. And they peacefully protested by having the black pastors go into the whites only bathroom. And the police got involved, and that case is the case that created qualified immunity for the police. But what's funny is that qualified immunity is off the 14th Amendment. So if you are a white state citizen, cops don't have any qualified immunity with you whatsoever. Nothing. So yeah, have them break out your window and spray paint your face with pepper spray, and I'll be sitting there smiling the whole time, brother, because they have no qualified immunity with me.
Wow. I mean, has anybody ever used the
no.
Nobody's used it. So every time when people are suing, I mean, I know when we're suing the government for different things, as I've had to after being called a third assassin and all that, we're going in there as like 14th Amendment
correct.
Citizens.
That's correct.
So we're not even following these laws. And by the way, they probably don't know either, the judges. So it's like we're in for a whole learning curve right now due to this discovery.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Wow.
Now it gets complicated because they can't build juries with state citizens. The juries are all U.S. citizens. So, for example, you can't do a grand jury indictment on me. If I went downstairs right now and shot somebody in the face with a machine gun, and I got picked up for murder one and possession of a machine gun, they wouldn't even be able to indict me, because the thing is that they can't build a grand jury with U.S. citizens to indict a state citizen. They would have no choice but to basically like bring back the grand jury indictment system from 150 years ago. They'd have no other option. They couldn't indict me. There'd be no way to indict me through a grand jury indictment. They'd have to rebuild the old grand juries from the 1800s that were composed only of white state citizens in order to, and then if they gave me a grand jury indictment, I'd also have the right to a jury trial. The entire jury would have to be white state citizens. So one black person on the jury, and I would call for nullification. It would be a mistrial.
That is just crazy, man. I can't wait till that actually makes it to court. What do these woke judges do? I mean, they're going to have a conniption.
Oh, they're going to just literally full meltdown. Full.
Brandon,
this shit is so embedded. There's so much Supreme Court case law. This is not like one little sentence from one obscure case that I'm going to have to like stretch to make it work. No, I have explained to you guys the entire substructure of everything.
Wow. I got to bring this up, man. When we're hanging out, you're making me laugh my ass off because you're talking about, you always do. I mean, you're one of the, I mean, obviously, you're talking about how the bar card graveyard, how it is your goal. Like, so this is, okay. I brought up to Brandon that I'm like, man, a lot of these things are so like revolutionary that you found. I mean, this is going to really drive a lot of lawyers nuts. And I pass the mic to you, sir.
Yeah, and I think the way I responded was that attorneys are like the second or third highest self-offing in the world. And I said, I'm very proud that I'll be contributing to that number. I want to get that into the first place.
Wow.
I want to get that into the first place category. That's my plan. Yeah.
It reminds me of the guy, I think Miller was the guy, like self-taught, you're similar, you're self-taught.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of good, it seems like the universities are spitting out bar agents or bar card holders. You call them bar card holders, I call them bar agents. Whereas this, studying the law through the methods that you've done, I mean, it's so much more liberating, it would seem like, because it seems like you're put in a prison through those schools. Whereas the stuff you're discovering, I mean, this is next level.
Yeah, so as you learn more and more about Mr. Taney and Mr. Miller and these guys, they're pretty much all self-taught, because back then there wasn't such a thing as really very many law schools. Harvard was one of the only ones. Harvard has a really rich history. Fuck, I just more than you'd ever even imagine. And what's crazy is 33 or 35 of the 52 people or 55 people or whatever it was that made up the Constitutional Convention were all attorneys. So what's crazy about this country is, yeah, attorneys are really evil now. It's just the most horrible, but the birth of the Constitution is a gift from attorneys. But the difference is the difference between an attorney that cares about the country and loves the country and wants this country to be something beautiful, and an attorney that is basically a piece of shit that sucks the lifeblood out of decent human beings and decent men and women legally to basically, for whatever weird bullshit thing that's in their head or whatever it is. It's basically just comes down to intent, right? So I think in today's world, I think, like I said, I want to bring attorneys, exiting this planet from the second or third place that it's in now, and I want to bring it to first place. But the thing is that the origination of attorneys is the literal foundation of the entire Constitution. If you love the Constitution, I mean, by definition, you love attorneys. It's just what that term attorney means is very different now than it was then, obviously, right?
It was just like everything else. Once it became an industrial complex, that's where it just becomes it becomes a destruction machine. And these discoveries couldn't have come at a better time, because I think people have just lost faith in the law, man. As somebody that was just almost framed, I mean, for being an assassin, having done nothing, I know how crazy the system is. And this is all a real blessing for us to know this knowledge now. Is there anything that we didn't touch upon that's worth going over, Brandon, before we wrap up this episode?
As a white state citizen, you could have a belt-fed M60 machine gun locked and loaded in your back seat, and there ain't a fucking thing anybody can do about it.
When I go to court, I just have to state that I am Vem Miller, domicile in Nevada, and I'm representing my sole proprietorship. I'm here presenting my sole proprietorship. No,
you would say that the sole proprietorship wasn't involved in any of that.
Okay.
The presumption is that the sole proprietorship rolled up in there and had this illegal gun and all this bullshit. The sole proprietorship can't be a white state citizen.
Wow. Okay. So basically, I say I'm a white state citizen, Vem Miller, domicile.
And you're going to say any presumption that I'm a resident, any presumption that I'm not white, any presumption that I'm a U.S. citizen, any presumption that I'm under the 14th Amendment is all bullshit. I can't have anything to do with the 14th Amendment, just like Mr. Miller says in Bradwell v. State and in the Slaughterhouse cases. if I tried to use the 14th Amendment in any way, shape, or form to protect me in this case, it would be a felony violation of 18 U.S.C. 911, and I would be basically arrested right here in the courtroom, and I'd be escorted into the prison to await arraignment.
So I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
The sole proprietorship wasn't there. The sole proprietorship had nothing to do with the interaction that you had with Chief Bianco. And you need to say that because that's going to be the presumption. The presumption is the 14th Amendment sole proprietorship is the one that is the defendant.
Wow. Wow. So interesting. I mean, do you think they did this intentionally, or this is just the way it ended up because of the starting point of the Constitution and that they didn't have black people in there?
Well, I think if Mr. Miller were to come back into today's world, I think there should be a cartoon, Mr. Miller Returns, and it's just him, and he would be the one with his face painted with 2 machine guns, just running into Washington, D.C., just mowing down everybody, like grenades and shit. Like, I think Mr. Miller would be what they consider to be a domestic terrorist. He would be like, he would ironically become the ultimate domestic terrorist. He'd blow up the buildings, literally. He'd be so fucking pissed.
What would he be pissed at the most from what you know about?
He was not intending for any of this shit to go like this at all. He just wanted to free the blacks. That's all he wanted to do, man. I'm telling you. He wanted to leave the white people alone. Don't worry, white people. I'm not going to violate the Constitution. You guys got your shit. This has got nothing to do with you. This is just to keep the black people from getting beat and killed and destroyed and fucked with and framed and everything else. That's it. That's all this is.
Wow. And and it's all been twisted into like the craziest thing, perpetual conflict, basically.
It's been twisted into everyone's under the 14th Amendment, and then every single government agency is under the 14th Amendment. FDA, CIA, the FBI, the entire police. There was no police before the advent of the U.S. citizen category. There was only the sheriffs. Sheriffs are for white people. Police is for non-whites.
Wow.
So you hear about guys like Cameron Wilson and all these guys driving while black and like all this stuff. It's 100% true. The police were literally created to essentially fuck with non-whites. I'm not kidding, literally.
Wow. Wow. Fascinating. Fascinating. Is there anything else, Brandon, we should go over?
No, that's it.
This is awesome, man. This is, I know this one's going to get a lot of views, man. There's so much great information here. The way you presented it was great. I thought I was going to have to do a bunch of post-production and put up all this stuff, but you pretty much did it for me, man.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Thank you.
It's easy. It's easy. It's something that I think I'm getting pretty good at explaining, and it's really fascinating. I think, like you said, I think people are, I call it Trump betrayal syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mentioned it when I was having dinner with you. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of MAGA people are experiencing that. And that I will say, if you're a MAGA guy and you are experiencing Trump betrayal syndrome, meaning that you're feeling like you are being betrayed by Trump or the Trump movement for any reason, you'll probably be very happy to find my platform.
Yeah. Yeah. I almost feel like this was, I mean, whether intentional or not, like we're facing an existential crisis. I mean, it's really turned into like an attempted spiritual, cultural white genocide. That's what we're seeing. You know what I mean? And, you know, now it's changing a little bit. Now we got, you know, what's her name? You know, Sydney Sweeney, like a regular pretty white girl that, you know, we should all like, it's as if like
pretty white girl with huge tits. It's like, finally, we're back, brother. You know what I mean?
No, you know, it's funny. I remember going to a Muslim country for a month and I didn't see a female for a month. And when I saw a female eventually, because I was out of the Muslim country, this was like 20 years ago, all of a sudden, like, I'm not kidding, every pore in my body opened up. It was the craziest thing, right? And that's what I think is happening right now with, hey, pretty girl Sydney Sweeney. Everybody's going crazy, and I'm just like, dude, she's a pretty like white girl, but like kind of like pretty white girl we grew up looking at in the magazines. You know what I mean? But the fact that it's all, but it just shows you how bad we've been like kind of white culture. You know, it's like so horrible. You're a bunch of racists, and this might be the stuff that saves this country because it ain't going to come from the media. And
isn't it funny that all of that, everything that I'm finding is the basis of the fact that white people have nothing to do with any of the bullshit, but then all of a sudden they have this anti-white. Kind of interesting, isn't it? It's almost like they knew that it's possible this thing could get found, and it's almost like they're trying to weld the door shut before somebody finds it. And they're like, 40% done welding the door shut. And then I'm like in my pickle outfit, bam, I slammed through the fucking thing. I'm like, whoa, hold on a second there. No more welding here, brother. You know what I mean? But it's interesting. It is interesting. It's an interesting thing. And I do want to say one other thing about the whole Trump thing. I'm not anti-Trump. In fact, I voted for him in 2020. It's just he promised a lot of things. He promised to get rid of the IRS. He promised a lot of things, and we'll see what he does or what he doesn't. But the whole there is no Epstein list. That thing really pissed a lot of people off, man, big time. You should see my graphs when that shit came out. There is no Epstein list, bro. My shit, fucking like 6x traffic, like every single fucking day on like every single fucking platform. And I'm telling you, I was like, what is going on here? And then I was able to tie it to that. And that's when I named it Trump Betrayal Syndrome.
Yeah. I think a lot of us are getting disappointed, man, because if this is the last, like, I think if this guy disappoints us, I mean, the only option is really what you're talking about. I'm already there, but I think a lot of people are going to be looking that way,
It's the real deal. It's the real truth. It's not me making shit up. It's not me. It's not like Brandon's idea. It's Brandon has dug up what America really is. And it's just been under a lot of sand for a long time. But this is it. This is the real deal. This is like, you could take this shit into a court of law and there ain't a fucking thing they can do about it. This is the real deal. So it's not just like Brandon's idea of what things should be. This is the law at the highest level that no one knew was there.
Wow. King Picklefuck His Excellency. It's always an honor, a privilege to have you on the Blood Money podcast, man. And I look forward to, doing a lot more work. I've been actually dreaming of this music video with the pickle guy, and there's just so much cool shit we could do. I'm hoping my time opens up in this near future so we could do some cool viral shit together, man.
I'm down. You talked about a documentary too. I'm down for that. We could do a whole historical timeline of Mr. Taney's life, Mr. Miller's life, how they got into their positions in the Supreme Court, the whole timeline of Mr. Miller wanting to free the slaves. We could do a whole thing on Dred Scott. We could add that in, that he was trying so hard. He went all the way through the lower courts, all the way through the appellate courts, all the way into the Supreme Court, trying to get his rights as an emancipated slave, and just make it cool and fresh and fun, and make it like a very, very, like a Netflix documentary style, but with this information. That'd be cool as fuck.
Yeah, I was just writing that down, man. That would be cool. That would be cool. I mean, everybody does, we've been in this whole conspiracy truth world because every conspiracy we thought was a theory turned out to be true. So now that, it's pretty much what else is there to expose? I think it's time to teach people, because I think we've exposed the shit that it's been, the steaming pile of shit that it's been. And let's talk about how do we free ourselves from that steaming pile of shit, really.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the fact that America is a white privilege country, if everyone gets educated and we all decide we're going to sit down and kind of like, restructure the government or restructure whatever, and we're going to figure out what we're going to do, We can always change that too. That's not set in stone. All we would have to do is just get rid of the U.S. citizen category entirely, which would automatically revert us back to the Naturalization Act of 1802. Federal Reserve notes would disappear immediately. The SEC would disappear immediately. All of Wall Street would disappear immediately. The FBI would disappear immediately. The police would disappear immediately. The DMV would disappear immediately. All taxation would disappear. All licensing, any sort of licensing would disappear. Property taxes would disappear. You'd have the county recorder, you'd have the sheriff's office, and you'd have the courthouses. That's all that would be left. Everything else would instantaneously evaporate. Now, from that point, if we decided as a culture that we didn't want this whole free white person thing, all you have to do is just remove the fact that someone has to be a free white person to become a state citizen. Just remove that one little line, leave everything else the same. We've got a brand new country. We've handled everything. Everything's gone. We've completely rebooted the entire country. Federal government's almost gone. Federal Reserve's gone. Federal Reserve notes are gone. The police are gone. There's no traffic tickets. There's no HOV lanes. There's no speeding limits. There's no taxation. There's no licensing. There's nothing. And then we would go back to gold and silver coins, but we have things like crypto stable coins that are backed by gold and silver. Just use one of those, and now we can keep. So the money that we have day to day would be these things now, gold and silver coins, but we don't want to lose our Postmates and our Amazons. So we would use crypto stable coins would become part of the actual currency system. Gold and silver would be the base, and then right above that, just 1 millimeter above that, would be the crypto stable coins. And then the crypto stable coins would be infused into a new monetary system, and we can keep our electronic payments, we can keep our auto pays, we can keep our Amazons, our Postmates. There would not even be a blip that would take away all of the conveniences that we enjoy today.
Wow. Amazing stuff, brother. Amazing stuff. Thank you so much. I look forward to doing a lot more work, guys. I expect people out there in the next few months, in the next few weeks, my schedule's going to clear up. I'm going to rev up with a few things, and we're going to start dropping a few things in the next few months that are collaborations between the amazing Pickle Men, yours truly, and a lot of our mutual friends, I guess, Brandon, thank you so much. For the viewers out there, thank you for joining us for this Blood Money episode. Make sure you check out AmericaHappens.com, where we have all of our featured episodes. I will see you all on the next episode of Blood Money. Take care.